Welcome to Film Fu, where the cuts are as clear as the kicks. I'm Shifu Payne, and today, this is it.
The big one.
This is definitely one of those films where you may not have seen the whole film, but you know that scene. That scene.
The ones where one scene sticks out and has more reverence to it than the entire film. The portal scene in Endgame, the Baba Yaga scene of John Wick.
At its heart, these sorts of scenes are the thesis of the film, the central idea, the central theme, the central question.
The scene which perfectly encapsulates what the film is about. Oftentimes these sorts of scenes can become the entire identity of the film overall, which is not necessarily a bad thing, as it is the central theme on full display, but it kind of overshadows everything else in the film.
Well, let's find out today what those other points are as we take a look at the defining, the explosive, the unforgettable Ip Man.
Starring Donnie Yen and released in 2008, directed by Wilson Yip and writing by Edmund Wan and Tai Lee Chan. Ip Man is pitched as a based on a true story kind of film, with expository dialogue detailing certain changes or time shifts.
And the phrase, based on a true story, has never quite been more correct. But we'll look more in detail about that in a minute, but first, let's give a rundown of the plot to just see what we're dealing with.
In the year 1935, the Japanese invade many provinces and cities of China during the Second Sino-Japanese War, killing many, enslaving others, and citing the soul-crushing depression many innocents feel in times of war. One person, who's a native of Foshan, a Wing Chun master by the name of Ip Man, played by Yen, who sees his friends and fellow countrymen killed and brutally tortured, continually feeling his own worth as a master fighter, failed to thwart such a threat. Trying to ensure the protection of his family, Ip Man makes the difficult decision to fight back against the Japanese incursion and bring hope back to the people of Foshan.
It's true that Ip Man, or Yip Man, was a Wing Chun master that did spend time living in Foshan, and did also come from a wealthy family.
And while in the film, Ip Man has to get a job at a coal mine during the occupation of Foshan to support his wife and son, he was not actually in Foshan during the occupation of Foshan during the Second Sino-Japanese War. In fact, he left Foshan to stay with a friend and returned after the war was over in 1945. Ip Man did not permanently move to Hong Kong until 1949, when the Chinese Communists won the Chinese Civil War, leaving due to being part of a political party which was against the Communist Party. It's obvious why all this was changed for the film. How are you supposed to have a film about a hero of martial arts living through a takeover and occupation if he's not even there?
Tell you what, let's agree to treat this as a myth told via a film. Cool?
With that being said, let's also quickly mention that Foshan, while having a history of prospering from trade and crafts throughout its history, was not as much a center of martial arts widely known far and wide as portrayed in the film. A lot of martial artists have come from that area, but it was not a hub for it like depicted here.
But what scene to look at in detail? Well, let's see. We have the highly overanalyzed, highly infamous action scene that everyone knows and recognizes as being from this film, or we could look at another fight scene which serves as the perfect introduction to our protagonist, plus features a martial art that I have a particular personal preference for, plus features the perfect microcosm of the psyche of our antagonists for this film. Should we make it a coin toss?
The scene we're looking at today is early into the film, serving as pretty much our first fight scene of the film, with a band of martial artists from the north coming to Foshan and seeking to open a school. They challenge other masters to duels, culminating in them challenging the Wing Chun master himself. Let's start with the actual challenging of other masters, because it's a great showcase of what sort of threat this guy is. Props to the costume department for the look of these northern masters. Compared to the other masters who wear soft cottons and silks, these guys wear more weathered clothing with furs, different textures, and definitely looking more cobbled together. It gives that idea that these guys have had to struggle more to get to where they are. You could even interpret that they were soldiers or in the military given their martial knowledge.
But let's quickly discuss a particular gripe that I have with this opening. the editing.
I don't mean the editing of the fights themselves, I mean the order of scenes in this opening. It could have been a lot stronger. We don't get to this opening fight until about 20 minutes into the film. We instead open with a lot of dialogue scenes, establishing characters that will come up later, establishing motivations and goals for the characters to work towards.
This is generally all well and good, but come on, this is a martial arts film, where's the action?
Why was this fight not the opening to the film? This is a much stronger introduction to the protagonist than a load of expository scenes. We get an idea of strength level, that he's respected, wise, family focused, but needs to spend more time with them, doesn't want to teach at this time, and lives in luxury. How hard would it have been to change the order of scenes, because these expository scenes pretty much tell us the same thing? Plus, an opening scene in a martial arts film needs oomph, a hook, to drawing the viewer, not talking. I didn't realize we were in the Matrix.
But I suppose, so long as this doesn't impact the action too much, let's take a look.
The Southern Master in the maroon goes into a stance for dragon style, a style that is more often given the philosophy of the culmination of other styles such as tiger, crane or snake style. The Northern Master goes into a standard stance, and you can just tell from the stances where these two are at. The Southern Master is not taking this seriously, thinking it won't take long, so wants to show off a little bit. But the Northern Master is more focused and grounded. He's not here to play games. The Maroon Man starts as the aggressor, going in with some flashy arm movements, again trying to show off and maybe intimidate this guy. But interestingly, the pattern shifts very quickly as the Northern Master starts attacking, leaving the Southern Master to need to defend, which goes back to the ideas of Northern Shaolin, which is more aggressive and attack focused. He quickly creates distance by performing a back kick. Not something which you often see, as it's not generally a good idea to turn your back from your opponent, but in this instance where it's to create distance and he immediately returns to his stance, I'll allow it. Oh, that look there. He's already lost. The Maroon Man's mind was never on this actual fight. Right from the start, his mind was on his students, making sure they saw him as the prestigious master instead of actually realizing the level of threat this guy was. Here, he's overextended and left himself open. Despite the fact that he's pulling off some nice flashy moves like a kip up or a planted roundhouse, it's clear the Northern Master is more determined and more grounded.
It doesn't even look as though he's actually trying to fight him most of the time. It looks more like he's just flailing his arms.
He finally pulls off a pop 180 and lands a punch to the head, defeating this guy. Next up is a weapons fight with the navy-wearing master using a guandao, while the Northern Master uses a dao sword. You can tell this guy's not as overconfident as the Maroon Man, looking kind of nervous and sheepish.
I mean, why else would he feel the need to grab a weapon to begin with?
It does seem as though they are more evenly matched at first, but it does follow the same sort of path as the first time. At first it's even, or a trading of blows until the Northern Master kicks them away and creates distance. Almost like he's assessing their skill level before going in for the kill. From there, the fight becomes more close quarters, and this is where the Navy Knit comes short. The guandao is more a ranged weapon. It's great for longer distances and is just mowing through swarms, but less so for close quarters. By comparison, the sword is more balanced, in that it can be used to again mow through and chop through mobs, but can also be used in shorter distances, at least depending on the type of sword. A great sword is going to be better to slice through enemies than the rapier. The Northern Master eventually kicks the Navy Knit into a piece of medieval gym equipment and pins him under his own weapon.
Yeah, good effort. 7.
For Mr. Grey, we cut straight to the action already in progress. We can tell the Northern Master is beginning to lose his cool. His goal is growing closer, and his win count is steadily growing. You can just see the hunger in his eyes.
He's desperate, and desperation creates impatience, and impatience leads to anger.
Anger leads to hate.
Yes, alright, we get it.
He jumps in with the fly kick and follows with a roundhouse. This fight definitely has more of a back and forth, as Mr. Grey uses more of a defensive, rooted style that is able to overcome most of the flurry of attacks from the Northern Masters.
But that's the thing with a flurry of attacks. All it takes is one hit to discombobulate.
The Northern Master lands a kick to Mr. Grey's side and finishes him off with what looks like a double roundhouse.
Okay, dude, we get it. You got mad skills, but why did you feel the need to attack all these guys to begin with?
As is pointed out, you could have opened a school without fighting anyone. You could interpret a number of things from this. The need to prove their ability to feel worthy to open a school. A survival of the fittest mentality that comes from having to fight to survive. As he later says, he had to struggle and fight for his ground, swearing to never go hungry again in Foshan. Perhaps his intentions do start from a friendly sparring point, but shift to a position of increasing pride in the face ways of defeating so-called masters.
Or maybe
He's an asshole.
This could be proven to be correct as he confronts Ip Man, as he basically calls Wing Chun a woman's martial art.
hey, don't cancel me, he said it.
Calling Ip Man a slave to his wife and borderline insulting her.
So he can, gotcha.
With that, the whoop-ass begins. The Northern Master goes in swinging with a flurry of punches that Ip Man easily blocks. It's easy to say that the Northern Master is putting a great deal of effort into the fight, while Ip Man is easily blocking his strikes.
Well, he has been fighting for the last half hour, give him a break.
It's funny that this guy keeps breaking Ip Man's stuff only to quickly say he'll pay, but it goes to that idea of developing pride. He is drawing closer to his goal, and is not going to stop as his power and status is so close to reaching its peak, completely sidestepping the fact that this is someone's home, and Ip Man's family are not too far away, but it still conveys his threat level as he easily breaks a table with a jumping downward kick. There's a brief pause as Ip Man's son rides through to tell his dad to keep the noise down.
Oh hey, what do you know? It's hubris time! Excuse me if I admire it from a safer distance.
A quick flurry of tail kicks won't do much as Ip Man starts playing offensive. Physics of this knee move aside, it creates a nice cue for us to look for throughout the rest of the film. Ip Man rolls up his sleeves, you should be praying for mercy. It also handily sets up what Ip Man fights for, and where his priorities are, his family. A flurry of strikes later, the hand-to-hand is over.
Do you think he's taken the hint?
Evidently not, as he grabs his sword. What the fuck?
Okay, it was one thing when the Navy Nid had a Guandao, but it's another thing entirely when you're pulling a sword on an unarmed man. Well, I guess it is true. The more desperate you are, the dumber you get.
A police captain is right outside the front door. Well, it doesn't seem to faze Ip Man as he fights with a feathered duster. Okay. What kind of pin is that? Is he pinning under his armpit?
Oh, is this more pressure point stuff? I had enough of this in Wuxia.
Finally, Ip Man kicks the sword out of his hands, banks him like the brat he is, and puts him in the corner. This dude actually comes back later, blaming Ip Man for his hardship and resorting to eventual banditry, when...
You have done that yourself.
We'll conclude that thought in a minute, but first, what does this film leave us with?
Well, first off, on a martial arts level, as Ip Man himself says, the actual martial art practice doesn't matter. Sure, different martial arts are built for different purposes. If they were all meant for fighting effectively, there wouldn't be over 180 different martial arts across the world. The body is a vehicle. It's the mind and the soul that serve as the drivers. It's not the strength of the martial art or the effectiveness of the technique that matters, but the effort and the will to
keep moving forward.
And going back to this guy, he really is the microcosm of the main antagonists of this film. The Japanese.
He chose to duel with several masters. He chose to pull a sword on an unarmed man. This guy chose to become a bandit during a war and deprive innocent people of resources.
Because that's the trouble. He still sees this as a fight.
Whether he came from a war front or a deprived childhood, it's clear that he had to fight for so long that he could not fully process the idea of the fight being over, of peace or diplomacy. He had to fight to be a teacher, fight to be respected, fight to survive. So now he can't look past his fight. See the other people his fight hurts. And because he can't see this, he looks for people to blame when things go wrong.
Like a big shadow.
Sure, Ip Man stopped him and sent him packing, but he only finished the fight. This guy was the one who started it.
Why are you making me do this?
Thank you for watching this week's video, and in the comments let me know if you've seen Ip Man and what you thought of it yourself. This video was definitely not a comprehensive look at the entirety of the film, and I will be more than willing to revisit this film at a later date. It's funny, when I looked at Seven Samurai, that film was proclaimed to be one of those multifaceted films that you can look into with so many different layers and so many different interpretations, but I didn't really see that with Seven Samurai. This one I can. Ip Man is my Seventh Samurai. What do you know? With that, thank you all for watching, and until next time, peace be with you.